Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN. Today, I thought we would go over and give you a nice overview, highlight, if you will, of migration and how it works in Call of Dragons, given there have been some updates. One of the most major ones was us going from a standard migration system that had slotted numbers and statuses that weren't obviously incredibly clear. We kind of went off of power to now a migration point system where you now have a realm migration point score and a personal migration point score. So I'm going to go over a number of highlighted points along with what I feel could be the future of how players potentially min-max their accounts up until a certain threshold to take advantage of the migration system. As always, if you enjoyed the content, make sure you throw us out. Thanks. Okay, so first and foremost, if you want to go and find out how to get updated information on the current migration point system, you just simply need to zoom all the way out, hit your server overview, go top right to rules, and they're all right here for your viewing pleasure. However, today we're going to be focusing on a number of points in a very brief sheet, or I should say a notepad, and then we're going to end up coming back. Let me just make sure we're good. Okay, fantastic. So here we go. Number one, and some of these will be kind of in order-ish, right? And as always, if there's anything else you guys want to add, please feel free to let us know in the comments. So number one, you can migrate to any realm currently in KVK or during the migration window in pre-war. Now, what does this look like? So if I wanted to, and just so we can kind of like easily maybe go back and forth here, if I want to, and I want to go into a kingdom, let's say Season of Strife, let's say I want to go into 398, right? On my account right now, a little over 50 million, I would be 6 points. I could go, I could technically go here. Right, they are not closed off. I'd have to apply, unlike this where it says migration unavailable for 402. I don't know if there's any green ones, but technically I could go in here. However, if you migrate into a kingdom that is in KVK, you will be limited to Zone 1, meaning you can play in the KVK, you can participate in any of the events that are happening that do not require for you to go past Zone 1, but you are Zone 1 locked, meaning that you cannot teleport, you cannot send troops through passes to another zone. You are basically stuck there in Zone 1 until the KVK ends. So that is a very important distinction. Otherwise, you would wait to migrate in a kingdom, for example, like here, right? So if I'm in, like if I click here and you see where it says migration, this is usually your pre-KVK timeline, and my face is, well, it's kind of out of the way. But basically, you have the migration waiting period. Migration would open in this example timeline, right? This is when you get to pre-war. So one of these kingdoms, I guess I should use one of these as an example. So once you get out of KVK, you have a waiting period. Migration will open, and then you are able to migrate up until registration closes. So once registration opens, right? So basically, I guess it would be whenever registration closes / matchmaking, right? So like the next one, you would figure that out once you're in your pre-KVK timeline. But that is where you would look at. So once migration opens, that's your window for when a kingdom is in pre-war. And then, like I said, either once registration closes or when migration, but usually registration will close, and then you'll have a waiting period for then it's your matchmaking period that starts, right? So that's why I kind of say it could be one and the same. The second that we'll go into here, right, is, like we said, you're confined to Zone 1. You can only migrate in the same season, right? And that's been stated multiple times. So an example for that is you can't go from Season of Strife to Season 3. Now, the way it is described is that you can only migrate within seasons. I personally don't think there's anything wrong with going from a younger season to an older one. I'm just only going off the rules for how I've seen them, where it states that you can only migrate within the same season. But I mean, if there's some strong players that are coming out of Season 2, out of Season 3, and you want to migrate to Season of Strife, again, for me personally, I don't really see a problem with that. But that's just the way the rules are now. Now, if you can migrate from a younger to an older kingdom, I probably could have asked someone now that I think about it before recording the video. But again, like I said, we're just going off how the rules are stated. Next is players having played in 3 or more SOS seasons, which is Season of Strife, cannot migrate to a first or second SOS season. Meaning, and I'll give you a really good example here. If you are just coming out of Season 3 and you are in Season 3 pre-war, there is a good chance that you may get stuck with the pre-war kingdoms for the upcoming KVK for Season of Strife. There's also the chance that you may not. However, once you finish Season 3, once you start your next KVK, as you're coming out of Season 3, that'll be going in to your Season of Strife KVK. You have to play, if you're someone who's in Season of Strife already and you've played at least 3 seasons, you cannot migrate to a kingdom that is in Season 3 pre-war, because that would be their first Season of Strife kingdom and or their second. So you would kind of have to keep track of that. It'd be nice if maybe they stated that. For example, if anyone that's in pre-war here, if maybe I could click on and it said something on here like SOS Season 1 and then SOS Season 2, like that would just be nice if there was some kind of like easily migration identifier. Otherwise, you'd have to click and kind of just manually go through it the old-fashioned way to see if you're able to get it. So again, they have that in place. The time difference portion. You cannot migrate to a kingdom that exceeds 210 days away from you. Now, the way it's stated in the rules is it just says 210 days. My assumption is that this is 210 days either way because it does not stipulate. However, you could probably infer that they just mean 210 days younger than you, because why would it really matter if you're going to an older kingdom than yours if they're farther along just in a number of areas? So yeah, again, safe bet is 210 days either way, but at very minimum, 210 days earlier is how I look at that. That's just the way that it's written. There's really not any more details in the specific migration rules page and or in any of the migration-related mails that I had a chance to look at. Next, there is 0 to 1,500 is a normal status kingdom. These are for migration points, for the realm migration scores. 1,500 to 3,500 is active. 3,500 to 3,999 is crowded. 4K gets you full. Special migration points, you gain 45 points a month. Now, I don't know if this is at the first of the month, which I would just assume it probably is, because the migration page says every month. My assumption would be the first of the month because it just makes it easy. I'm sure those that are in, and if you're a king or queen, you probably already privy to that, maybe not necessarily the average populace. But just know that every month, 45 points are there. You are able to carry those points over, but you can only have a maximum of 150 special migration points. Now, special migration points are used if your kingdom is full status and or if your kingdom is locked and you have to accept someone because they are over some cap, so to speak, from what I've seen. Now, in most cases, again, as special migration, it really is meant to be used. Now, and I should say this, maybe they fixed that. I probably should correct myself there, because they may have. The idea behind special migration innately is that you are using it when your kingdom is full status, to be very clear. That's the exact way that the Imperium kingdoms worked in Rise of Kingdoms, where if you wanted to bring in someone that we would usually dub an overcap player, meaning that you could have brought in people that were like at 25, eventually got bumped up to 35 million power I don't know if I should say for free, but they could come in if you were an Imperium kingdom, but that you only had certain special migration tickets that you would use to bring in players that exceeded the cap. So in this case, I'll just go with the bare minimum, which is that the way the rules are set up is that you would use your special migration points if your server status is full to bring in players that you could not bring in because, again, your kingdom is full. It does not allow for you to bring in anyone in, so that's where the special migration points come into play. So the idea here, a little tip, and I'm sure most people probably already figure this, is that you basically never want to max your points out, right? Meaning you don't want to ever be in a situation where, let's say you are at 110 migration points out of 150, and the next month is coming up, because then you would be at technically 155. So you lose out on those 5 points. You always want to be at 150 or under, meaning that you should be using special migration points every month to at minimum be at 105 points exactly or less than before the next month comes in. So that way you're able to keep bringing in players and then you're never missing out, right, on unused points. Migration score is top 400 players' points combined. That apparently is what your realm score that you would see. So that's just adding in your top 500 points. Now, the interesting part about this is that they also have a secondary measure here, which states that if scores of the top 800 players exceed 1.5 times the realm capacity, which again, remember, we talked about realm capacity. That is for your realm capacity, points there, right? Exceed 1.5 times the realm capacity, you then will be designated as a full kingdom. Now, my thought when I'm reading this is, okay, and I guess there's two lines of thought here. Are they referring to the capacity of the overall migration points that the individual player influences all add up to get your overall migration score? Or are they saying like, oh, there's like some hidden total amount of player cap space that you can have in the kingdom? Based on it saying if scores, I'd like to believe the former in this case. So the example I came up with is that if you have 800 player points, and let's say they equal 6,000 points of an SOS kingdom because your max score is 4,000 points that you're allotted, meaning that with migration point limit of 4K, you would then be full. That's how I'm interpreting it based on how it's written. However, if that's not the case, I'd love to know. And I'm sure someone will let us know in the comments if needed. That's how it's written. That's how I'm perceiving it. But again, maybe it's something different than that. That's how it looks to me at face value. Now, again, if you're asking me, if we're just going down that line of thinking for a moment, does it make? I don't get it. I will say that honestly. It makes no sense to me on why you would, again, if I'm going down that path of thinking, why would you have a limit? Why would you exceed the amount of points and say that, okay, well, out of these 800 players, if their total scores exceed 1.5 times the realm capacity, or again, realm migration point limit, then it also becomes full. And the reason they give is because they say that they don't want kingdoms to be over condensed of players and activity. I mean, to be fair, one way to kind of, we've talked about this briefly. I'll only interject shortly here, is that one of the things we've talked about is if you allowed for more kingdoms, if you allowed for newer kingdoms to fill up with more active players meeting certain criteria. The example we give is one of the migration achievements is you have to unlock, or so you have to have a certain amount of players to reach level 4. Instead, have it be so you have to have that same amount of players reach level 11 or reach level 16, something higher than level 4. That's all I'm saying. And that's because the higher the level a player gets, the higher percentage chance that player will continue to play the game and play it longer than someone who gets to level 4. We've talked about this. You can like speed boost to level 4 in a matter of minutes. So it's not really an accurate indicator on that. Again, that's a topic for another time. I just wanted to state that. Next, personal score influence includes heroes, artifacts, legions, buildings, and tech. Legion's unit count is calculated as your highest legion count in the last 45 days. Now, they don't state that this refreshes on a particular day, so my assumption is that it's rolling, meaning that today you would go back 45 days. Tomorrow you'd go back 45 days. The day after tomorrow, 45 days back, right? So it's kind of like it's like a real-time rolling update that it applies, unless they were to state otherwise. Again, this is why the devil's in the details here. Then we get realm migration scores and personal migration scores update every Tuesday and Friday, unless an update or maintenance or something else is occurring that could potentially impact it. Lastly, my pro tip here. One of the things they talk about in migration rules server status number 3, and we'll show you that real quick. If I go to number 3, it states personal migration score calculation. This is something I think that if you are not at, let's say, a fully maxed account, right, which you probably would be heavy spending at this point in order to do that. and you want to keep your personal migration score as low as possible, which helps out kingdoms all over, the best way to do that is to min-max. As an example, it says on here the Legion power of units healed. Oh, sorry, I can't use healed. That's probably a bad example there. Artifacts count towards your personal migration score regardless of whether they are equipped or not. Meaning, it probably isn't going to serve you justice to just start leveling up a bunch of artifacts, right? It's probably better for you to keep some of those resources and then have a priority focus on the artifacts that you're going to level up. Same thing with war pets as well, right? Those are areas that you can at least have a little bit more of a margin of control on. So this way, you're not inflating your power potentially, and which may also increase your personal migration score if you're trying to go somewhere and or help out other kingdoms, right? So that way you're not impacting to a larger total if you were to migrate and come in. It obviously says things on here like the number of dead units, right? Legions count last 45 days. So just wanted to point like those two areas out because those seem like two areas of opportunity. And I guess I'm curious if maybe there's some players that are already doing this and you've already kind of thought, okay, yeah, we are going to min-max our accounts, at least on those two areas that we can control and impact a little bit more of. Aside from that, if there is anything like we've stated that we're missing or maybe could have added, or maybe just something else, even if it's another angle on approach, please let us know in the comments down below. That is going to do it for me. As always, until next time, we'll catch you later.